Well, Mayor Atchison, it looks like we're live. I'm going to go ahead and wait just a couple minutes, see who we can get to hop on with us before we get our weekly meeting kicked off. All right, well, let's get this rolling. So good morning and happy Monday. Hope everyone is excited to get another week started and is finding some sort of a new schedule, really, given everything that's going on. I am Juliette Abdel, President and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce, and I just want to share with you just some appreciation and gratitude. Thank you for tuning in over the last several weeks with us as we've released a series of videos from various business experts to help you adapt with your business, to our electeds here at our city level with our Mayor of Westminster, Herb Atchison, on Monday, and then other electeds on Fridays from our county to our state on what they're doing in wake of COVID and how they're trying their best to provide solutions that are timely, that are relevant and supportive of our businesses. If this is your first time landing on our page, please like the page and follow our page so you can get continuous updates as we release events and programs. Every Monday, we start off by sharing with you this week's programs or events so you can try and mark the time off on your end as well. So I do want to recognize and thank a couple of people. Looks like we have Councilor Seymour that's on here, Parker, and Brian, thank you for tuning in. And I will turn this over to Mayor Atchison to share with us this week's updates. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments and questions section of this video so that we can address it for you.
Morning, Juliette.
Good morning.
Well, today is one of two things. It's a day of decision or a day of indecision, depending upon which one you're enthused with. As you remember, today is the effective date of the governor's safer at home order, but under the rules of the state of Colorado and the fact that we're still under a declared state of an emergency, this is also a continuation of the stay at home order in both Adams and Jefferson County. Both counties have the same rules as do most of the counties across the metro area. And as of today, only 3 counties, and only one of those 3 in the metro area, that being Douglas County, have been given permission to set a different set of rules than the safer at home order or the stay at home order, and that's Douglas County. And it's purely based upon the very low number of new cases or confirmed cases that they have in the county. So we'll talk a little bit more about that toward the latter part of the program. But also today is the Small Business Administration began accepting paycheck protection applications again this morning at 8 o'clock. The president signed a new $320 billion stimulus package into law last Friday in order to fund the Paycheck Protection Program. The program provides small businesses, those with 500 or less employees, loans of up to $10 million, which can be forgiven under certain circumstances. Small businesses may apply for the program through the existing SBA 7A lender. Now, the city has tried to help out so that people are not having to search so many places. We have recently surveyed a number of local banks to help identify which banks will accept PPP applications. The list that we have found and confirmed can be found at Westminster Economic Development, .org. We'll also continue to post resources on our website to help businesses who are not able to take part in the PPP. And there are a number of grants and other financial programs available. Let me give you a few examples. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, in partnership with Vistaprint, is launching the Save Small Business Fund, which provides $5,000 for businesses that employ between 3 and 20 people, among some other qualifications. Facebook is committing to support 10,000 U.S. small businesses with a $40 million. The fund is available in 34 locations. In partnership with Verizon, the digital fundraising and advocacy platform Hello Alice is offering emergency grants for up to $10,000 for companies impacted by the corona pandemic. Google is offering $340 million in advertising grants for small and medium-sized businesses, a credit that can be added automatically to Google Ads accounts. Verizon has allocated $5 million to the Local Initiative Support Corporation to distribute by grants to small businesses. GoFundMe has partnered with Intuit QuickBooks, Yelp, GoDaddy, and Bill.com to give small businesses a $500 grant. Yelp is also offering advertising credits for small, independently owned restaurants and bars. We also have posted a list of Westminster restaurants that are open during this period. We've included their hours and the service that they are providing and whether they are providing delivery or curbside pickup. We encourage you to continue to support all of our Westminster businesses and especially our restaurants, as they will probably have a slower time reopening than some of the other businesses. Now, unfortunately, what we've observed throughout this piece is that we still have a lot of people who do not take protection as a high enough priority. This past weekend, I was at a couple of places to do some observation and observed that about half the people going into the grocery stores, regardless of the age group, including small children, were not wearing any kind of personal protective equipment. Yet they went into the stores, shopped, handled food, produce, fruit, and they may or may not have put it into their cart. But yet we require the workers in these establishments to wear protective equipment, especially face masks, as they serve these employees. The big concern to express back to me through some of the groups, government relations groups, has been we're not doing enough to protect the workers, but yet they're there and being mandated to be at work with protective equipment on to serve the public. So they are asking us, please, to continue to reiterate the issue of help protect the workers who are protecting you by bringing you food and groceries and stuff like that. Now, we've had some conversation, and tonight it will be an item of discussion. No decision has been made, but it will be a discussion of should we follow the path that the city of Wheat Ridge took. And at least 2 of the 3 calls I had with the governor last week, along with other mayors throughout the region and in some throughout the entire state, the governor has continued to encourage people to wear a mask when out socializing, maintain social distancing. But he's encouraged the mayors and the counties across the board to look at the Wheat Ridge example, and if you can, to institute this to help protect the people who are serving you. This will be an item we'll discuss tonight. I don't know if we'll reach a decision tonight, but it will be something we've asked staff to be prepared to discuss.
And if I can just interject here, it looks like we've gotten a lot of people that have hopped on. If you've just hopped on, we have with us Mayor Herb Atchison that's sharing updates from city level, what they have been implementing in wake of COVID, some resources that they're aware of. And then we just recently touched on our council meeting that's this evening, which will be broadcast now. Right before we hopped on, I asked Mayor Atchison about public comments. And anyone that's interested in public comments on city council items or just anything that they wanted to bring up has until 12 o'clock to do so.
Just continue on a little bit. One of the things that we've talked about, and I mentioned this because I've talked to a number of our businesses here in the Westminster area over the last few days, especially with the pending changes in the Safer at Home Act and the the revised ones from the county health departments. A lot of our businesses will not be reopening even under this new order. They simply can't afford the cost of being able to open up under such severe restrictions. Being able to come to the curbside is working out well for a lot of our restaurants, but the retail businesses, I think, will struggle more with that. The other reports that we're starting to see and that are somewhat disturbing is that many of the people who have already gained the PPP grants are starting to indicate that even though those grants were for the purpose of keeping people employed and keeping them on the payroll so that once business could reopen, they are now telling people that they are not likely to rehire a large number of those employees when business comes back. They have varying reasons for why they feel that way, and a lot of it could be just the time it takes. But even if we talk about a potential opening later in the month of May for the restaurants, the early indication is unless they can open back up with full capacity in their restaurants, many of them will not until that point is reached. They simply have the financial burden of trying to open up on a much smaller scale than what their business plans allocate, that they don't think they can make it by opening up a portion of a restaurant or even a half, that the social distancing requirement in those restaurants will be too great of a financial burden for them to do that. That all remains to be seen at this point, depending on what the orders are, how we do with our testing. But as we've talked about, there's 4 elements of the testing that are critical to us knowing where we're at. First of all is the reagents that we need enabled to perform the test. Second are the test kits themselves. The third is the people who can do the testing for us. And the fourth is the testing lab capacity. At this point, we're not able to do any of those in a large enough basis to test the population. One of the exceptions to that was Eagle County, who was able to put together a testing program, and they tested the entire population of the county. Therefore, they've gone back to opening stuff up under the safer at home guidelines and some of their own county health department, but they're also restricting people who can visit the county because they don't want people from the metro area coming to the county and potentially reinfected the county. Every health department we've talked about in the local area over the last few days continues to repeat, they're not sure that we're not facing a second wave. They don't know when it's going to come, but some people have indicated it could be as late summer or into the fall that we could see another wave of this. The worst thing we can do to a business is tell them to go ahead and open up, spend all the money to get your place back in line, take out the grants and stuff, and then come back later and tell you, I got to shut you back down again. It's important that we think of what's the impact of our small business, especially. Unfortunately, we will probably see some small businesses in the metro area, not just in Westminster, that simply cannot reopen when this is over. Some of that has already started to see. We've seen news reports about restaurants that have been in business since the early 40s that have been here all this time that are now just saying they cannot afford the impact, and they've decided not to reopen under any circumstances. They're going to go ahead and they've notified their employees. So we'll see what happens. As Juliet and I were talking about earlier, some of the things we've also seen is people who have now gone on unemployment are making more on unemployment than they were when they were working. And it may have been a part-time job, but with what they can collect on unemployment, the encouragement to get off the unemployment, go back to work when that's available may also be a restriction that we see people opening back up. So Juliet, unless you've got some questions, that's kind of what I've got for you this morning.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of comments, Counselor DeMott's on here, thanking you for the update. A couple of small business owners that are on here as well, Teresa, Tina, and several others that are also thanking you, Mayor, for some of these timely updates. We have a question that's kind of a comment unrelated to this topic, so I'll be sure to share that one with you offline if that's okay.
Sure.
And then we have another comment that says, hearing some stories about workers not wanting to come back to work because they make more staying home between unemployment and the additional money from the federal government than they would if they went back to work. And is that an item of discussion that our Department of Labor or any of the programs that they have become eligible for are considering, whether that's a cap or generally when you're looking at filing for an employment, you have to show that you're applying for a position to be able to continue to receive the benefits. So are you aware of what mechanisms are starting to be implemented or that they've looking into to be able to stop the potential for this? I don't want to say it's abuse necessarily, but for them to actually get back to work if that's a possibility for them.
As I mentioned, this is an issue that we're hearing about already, that some of these people just are not going to be rehired, but also, and that some of them, as you just pointed out, are now making more money than they were before based on the programs that are available. All of these programs are potentially going to run out of money at some point. So either that's going to force people back to going back to looking for jobs that may be available. And then there may be those that are not going to return because they have concerns about going back to work. There's a lot of different things that are moving parts to this that are just not under the control of local elected officials, because these are all, in most cases, federal programs. We have not heard any information at all about what mechanism or process that they will use to verify that people who applied for and are collecting these unemployment or grant programs, not so much the grants, but the loans, are actually going to pay those back, or they're going to stop collecting the unemployment and go back to the jobs that they had before. There are just so many unknown factors right now about when can we go back, how can we open back up, how do we make it safe, how do we get people to trust coming back. Even though the governor's order allowed for elective surgeries at hospitals to start back today, my conversation with the 4 CEOs of the hospitals that serve Westminster is they're not sure people are going to come back right away. There's still the concern that our hospitals have the COVID patients there, that people are dying in those hospitals from this. And are they feeling comfortable enough, including some of the employees, of coming back to the hospitals to have these procedures done? The elective surgery pieces for hospitals is a big part of the income base that they count on. So with all of that stopped until today, in many cases, that revenue stream hasn't been there for them. There are just so many unknown factors at this point of what's going to go back, who we're going to see go back, when, how people are going to be asked to remove themselves from these federal programs to get back to a job that they may have had that's now available, but yet still understanding the fear that people may have about going back to work and dealing with the public. Too many things at this point, so early in the program, about the potentials of starting to go back. As Juliet and I talked about a little bit earlier, even though there's a lot of discussion about restaurants and bars being open around the middle of May, based on the information I'm getting right now and what I'm seeing that is being reported by the health departments, I'm not certain that that's going to happen. And if it does, I think we're going to have a lot of the same concerns. Can the people get ready? Can they get the employees back? And is the public going to be comfortable enough going back into these settings, knowing that they could kick off another resurgence?
So a few piggyback questions. So one is mainly clarification so that our viewers can know, Mayor Atchison has been on here to share with us some available funding sources that are out there, some that have kind of tapped out. I know the U.S. Chamber one went out in 24 hours, our grant program in 48 hours, but there are other options that are out there. So please make sure that you're viewing some of those opportunities. We list them on our westminsterchamber.biz COVID resources tab, and Westminster City Economic Development Office also has some great resources on their page as well. As it relates to the CARES and PPP, a key component of that was to rehire or retain a select percentage of your employee base. And is that right, Mayor Atchison?
That's correct. That's the way it was intended. And we're hoping that people will abide by those restrictions, because even though that's not money that either the state, the county, or the municipalities control, if you're using money that you don't really need, that's restricting someone who really needs the money from getting the funding. And we saw that with the first round of the PPP, that ran out of money so fast. Even with this new stimulus in there, the very likelihood is that a lot of our needy small businesses will still not be able to get into those loans. That's why it's important for those who don't get in to go to the westminstereconomicdevelopment.org site to see places where you might be able to go apply, and the banks that are doing that right now.
Absolutely. We've got a few different, comments. Several people, Ryan, Jackie, I see you guys on here as well. John Bodner, Peter, Alyssa, thank you for spending some of your morning with us. We do have a couple of folks that are sharing it is a mess, and that part of the situation that we're in is just the unknown for business and individuals, really. There is a question that's here asking, when will it be safe to open the swim and fitness centers?
Right now, our city staff is reviewing that, but even if we wanted to reopen it, we're still under the guise that we cannot under the current order. And even if we went to the safer at home order, you still can't have more than 10 people in. So the city park, the rec centers and stuff, they're just not on the immediate future of opening back up.
So we also mentioned, Eagle County, they piloted their program and they tested a lot of people in their county, and that's why they were going to open up. What is the likelihood, or do you see some other counties mimicking the same pilot program? Why haven't folks like Adams County or Jefferson County explored that option as well?
Well, you look at it, the two counties you mentioned, the biggest part of that is a population, each one of over 500,000 people. And if you can't get it done very quickly, even in a county that had, say, between 5 and 8,000 people, how would we handle a 500,000 people?
Mhm.
Plus, you go back to the four parts. We don't have the equipment, we don't have the people, we don't have the lab capacity to do that. And then somebody's got to pay for it. And each of those is going to be expensive. We've heard each sample that's taken to run it through is somewhere between $70 and $100 per test.
Wow. Wow. And really that ties into this comment, part of the consideration Tina Francone, is whether or not we throw the doors open again, the burden on our medical workers and facilities yet again. And I think you highlighted that a little bit with the hospitals. A lot of those procedures that could be done, if you're looking at things like total knee replacements or hip replacements, things of that nature, it's for those more vulnerable communities that you don't necessarily want in an environment that they may pick anything up. There was a comment or question from Brian Head. I'll address it a little bit and then I'll see if you have more. He's appreciative of your message and the great information you've hopped on and shared with us. Being situated in two counties, how much is the city having is communicating with Adams and Jefferson County regarding reopening, so that we don't have one side of the city with a different instruction than the other. And before we hopped on, Mayor Atchison and I were actually touching base on Jeffco. We are both plugged in with our counties. I know our chamber has been working pretty diligently with working groups on both ends to advocate for business. But can you expound a little bit on city's communication strategy to some of the counties as well?
Well, typically I'm on at least one call a week that includes the head of the Department of Health, either for Tri-County, which covers the Adams County portion of Westminster, or Jefferson County for the other part. And one of the things that we've continued to request them to do, and they've done this so far, is to work together as a group, because the health departments have at least multiple meetings. They're on one call a day, is my understanding. And they have a larger scale meeting at least once a week on a statewide basis. One of the things that we've asked them, and we specifically requested this of the governor, is that don't give us multiple places to go to get information. We're seeing this now. It's going to be different in Douglas County than it is in Arapahoe or Denver, other places that's in the metro area. This will and could cause more confusion and harm than it's going to be helpful. So far, we've been able to get all the groups here in the metro area, especially, to stay together on what orders they're issuing. Even Broomfield went to a special meeting of their health department last Friday night to make sure that they were in line with the rest of the metro area. Right now, everybody in the metro area, with the exception of Douglas County, are on the May 8th date. Those will continue. My personal opinion, and I'm telling you, it's my personal opinion, I do not believe that we will see the order lifted on May 8th. At least in Westminster, what we're seeing from Adams County and Jefferson County, our numbers have not declined. Our numbers have not flattened out. And both of those health departments have been rigorous in saying we need a 14-day span of no new increases in testing or convictions of coronavirus. We are not there. And again, the more testing we do, the problem is these test cases take several days to get back. So what we're finding out is we already have somebody might be in the hospital or back at home before we ever get the test results. Unless there's some way that the counties and the state can do a lot more testing, and I would say it's got to be at least 4 times a day what they're doing today to even start to make a dent in it, I don't know how soon we're going to open up. I don't have a crystal ball, and if I did, I wouldn't go to Vegas with it anyway because they're closed.
I was going to say, you could take me with you, but you shot that down. Sarah, Jason Gink, Peggy, Melissa Snyder, thank you so much for hopping on this morning, and Shelly Davis as well for listening in. We have a few more questions. I think we'll take up about 3 of these, and if we get any more questions past this, I'll be sure to come back and have you answer them. We also have Mayor Adam Paul that's tuned in with us as well.
Morning, Adam.
Yeah, so this question is, can you provide an update on the city's golf courses?
The golf courses are still closed. The staff will continue to evaluate the social pieces of that. I know that they sent out some new information on Friday to people who had been calling in. But again, it's the concern of exposure to staff, although there are some things that could be done. But the overall evaluation will be under the city manager's guise of, do we think it's safe enough? Do the people who have to be out there to have the golf course open feel comfortable enough coming back to work under those conditions, when what they see out there will be people who would typically not be wearing any type of protective gear.
Mm.
I can't tell you today that we're going to open up. I know that the questions out there is being evaluated. That will come from our staff if it's safe enough where they would feel it's good to open it up.
Excellent. And then we have a couple other questions, and this one relates to, so earlier on we had Mayor Atchison. If you're just now hopping on, then we've shared updates on some funding options that are out there, what the city has kind of been doing in the communication efforts and working with us and other partners along the area. We've also touched on the recent public health orders, the stay at home that's been extended. And then we also touched on the city council meeting that's this evening, with public comments being needed to be submitted by noon. This question comes as a follow-up to that, Mayor Atchison, and it's, can you expand on what Wheat Ridge is doing that the governor is recommending Westminster and to be considering as well?
Well, Wheat Ridge went ahead and issued an order that anyone going into a store that sells groceries, King Soopers, Safeway, Albertsons, Whole Foods, doesn't matter who they are, that the customer is required by their city to wear a protective mask. Doesn't say anything about gloves, as I recall. And there is a civil penalty if you are asked to put it on and you don't have it, or you refuse to wear it.
Okay.
I don't know the full details of the enforcement area, but again, our city is looking at that as in conversation with their city attorney and their law enforcement there as well.
Okay, yeah, so I think you answered that pretty succinctly. This is funny, somebody's name is Bruce Lee. I just thought about the famous person. Thank you for tuning in, and Dwayne. Here's another question. And what are the numbers of people that have been tested, infected, and died from COVID in Westminster?
I don't have that level of detail. We get a statewide and a countywide report, but it's not broken down by the city.
All right. I think I have done my best to kind of pull over comments and questions that we've grabbed. Thank you so much, Mayor Atchison, for hopping on here for our Monday updates. For everyone that's tuned in, whether you're here in our city, outside of our state, or other electeds across the state of Colorado, thank you so much for chiming in and making sure that you're also staying in close contact with us, because we really are truly all in this together. We touched a lot on workforce and unemployment. I am going to put in a small plug. We have our workforce job fair this Thursday. So if anyone is interested, or someone that you know that's looking for a job, make sure you have them RSVP so they can attend that. We'll have Amazon, Aerotech, and Kroger, and a couple other folks that are on the line to share positions they have open and how you can go about applying for that. Tune in with us tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. for our next broadcast. That is focused on buying and selling a business. And I know you're probably wondering, okay, why is this relevant? Some of us have businesses that are not doing too well in this time. Some of us are looking for new opportunities and what's ahead after this all passes. So we'll have with us two folks. One is from Transworld Business Advisors to touch on the process of it. And then we'll have Colorado Lending Source talking about the funding that they have out there to support whether you're buying or selling that business. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing. We've communicated great today, and Tina and several others for chiming in. And many thanks to you, Mayor, for spending your morning with us. I'll look forward to next week.
See you then.
Bye.